Heartwarming rescue. Waitress exposed to danger. Hidden Mafia boss transforms her life in seconds. Emma wiped the sweat from her brow, her heart racing as she balanced 3 plates of pie in one hand and took an order with the other. The Clover diner was packed, the familiar scent of fresh coffee and frying bacon filling the air like a warm hug. Just as she served a table of regulars, a loud crash echoed from the door. It was a storm coming in, but not the kind with rain. Marco, dressed to the nines in a tailored coat that screamed money, stepped inside, looking every bit like he owned the place. Behind him, 2 burly men trailed, eyes flickering with a dangerous tension. Emma's stomach dropped. The diner, her sanctuary, suddenly felt like a battleground. She exchanged worried glances with her coworker, Betty. Just moments ago, she was serving her beloved pancake specials, but now her instincts kicked in. She watched as Marco looked around, his icy gaze locking onto those men. A chill crawled up Emma's spine. This wasn't just any ordinary lunch rush, this was trouble. Emma's heart raced as she approached Marco, her nerves steadying on her daughter Lily's smile, the one picture glimmering in her mind. "Can I get you something?" she asked, her voice a blend of courage and concern. Suddenly, the tension snapped like a rubber band. Marco's demeanor shifted, and in seconds, he fired a threat at the men, who were clearly from his past. The diner froze. "You think you can come into my territory?" Marco growled, drawing hushed gasps from the surrounding patrons. Emma felt the weight of their stares on her back. They were all waiting to see what would happen next. Then, something inside her sparked. Without thinking, she stepped between Marco and his rivals, hands raised. "Hey, everyone just wants a meal. Can we not do this here?" she implored, her voice firm and unyielding, the same way she spoke to Lily when she wanted her to listen. In that moment, she became a shield, drawing surprise and respect from Marco. The tension dissipated, the men backing down, their pride bruised but lives intact. A wave of relief swept through the diner, thunderous applause broke out, and Emma could feel the echo of hope filling the air as people returned to their meals. Marco's intense gaze flickered down to her. What he saw was a woman full of grit and devotion, someone who would fight for her daughter and the life she carefully steered through every storm. Emma held her breath, heart pounding. Had she just put herself in the way of something dangerous? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. After that day, Marco seemed to linger, his interest in her unwavering. He began casually appearing at the diner, a subtle smile on his lips, always talking to her about life. Emma couldn't ignore the warmth blooming in her chest. But with him came jealousy and disdain from his associates. They warned her to back off, but how could she resist a chance at something better, something more? Emma's life had suddenly spun into a web of confusion and risk. Amid stolen glances and deep conversations, she felt the walls close in around her. Was this new life worth the pressure? With Lily's future hanging in the balance, Emma stood at a crossroads, wondering if she could truly protect what mattered most as shadows of danger began to creep ever closer. The days that followed felt like a blur. The Clover Diner became a stage where Emma and Marco spun an intricate dance, one that both titillated and terrified her. Each encounter brought laughter and shared glances, moments where she tried to forget the danger lurking just beneath the surface. Yet, every time Marco drew near, the shadows of his world crept closer, reminding her that his charm came wrapped in complications. Lily noticed, of course. With her wide eyes and sensitive heart, she felt the shift in her mother. "Mom, why do you always smile when you talk about that guy?" she asked one evening while they baked cookies together. Emma's heart sank. Did her daughter sense the risk? Could she see that her mother was dancing far too close to the flames? "It's just sometimes we meet people who change our perspective," Emma replied, carefully choosing her words. "He is just interesting, that's all." But in Lily's expression, Emma could see doubt. She brushed it aside, but the unease remained like a fog hovering just out of reach. One evening, after the diner closed, Emma found herself wiping down the counter, tired but content. Marco unexpectedly swung by the diner, looking dapper as ever. "Can I treat you to a coffee?" he asked, eyes glinting, a playful smile tugging at his lips. Against her better judgment, Emma nodded. They slipped into the booth in the corner, intimate distance shrinking between them. As they talked, Marco's warmth enveloped her, and she found herself opening up about her past, sharing laughter about the chaotic runs of the diner, and her dreams for Lily. But just as she felt herself soften, she caught sight of three dark figures lurking outside, their eyes fixed on Marco like predators in the night. A wave of dread crashed over her. "Marco," she whispered, leaning in closer, "is everything okay?" His expression tightened. "It's just business." He said it like it was no big deal, but Emma felt the tremor in her heart. Suddenly, the door flew open. The chill of the night swept in, along with those figures, men she recognized, but barely knew. They were from Marco's past, all power and fury, stepping into her sanctuary. "What are you doing with my brother?" One of them snarled at Marco, his voice laced with menace. Emma's breath hitched. The diner, once a refuge, felt like a ticking time bomb. Marco pushed back his chair, a defensive stance emerging. His calm facade slipped momentarily, revealing a glimmer of tension coiling beneath it. "It's not what you think," he replied coldly. Emma shot up, adrenaline coursing through her. "Whatever trouble you're here for, you need to leave. This is a place of peace." She turned to Marco, heart pounding, desperate for him to see how the stakes were rising. Before Marco could respond, one of the men took a menacing step forward, eyes narrowing. "You need to stay out of this, sweetheart. It's not safe." The words sent a chill down her spine. She was suddenly acutely aware of how deeply entwined she'd become with Marco's world, and the danger that followed him. "Safety is exactly what I'm trying to protect," Emma replied fiercely, astonished at her own bravery. She felt their gazes shifting to her, weighing her resolve. Would they back off, or was she just making it worse? As tension filled the air, Marco glanced at her, a mix of admiration and concern in his expression. He had never seen this side of her before. What was she willing to sacrifice for this? In the split second that followed, the standoff felt suspended in time. Emma could either retreat into the safety of the diner or stand her ground for the first time in her life. And that's when she realized this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Lily, about their future. "Whatever is happening here, you need to leave. You're not welcome," she said again, her voice unwavering now, a palpable strength threading through her words. The men paused, the atmosphere charged with uncertainty. Then Marco stepped forward, standing tall beside her. "Not in my territory," he asserted, a roaring protectiveness in his tone. Emma's heart raced. Could they really face down these men together? Would it only escalate from here? The confrontation hung heavy in the air, promises whispered, and roles shifting as mysterious loyalties came to light. In that moment, everything seemed poised on a precipice. Would their stand bring safety, or would it draw the storm even closer? As the shadows loomed, Emma felt a tremor of anticipation. Was she ready to plunge deeper into this world, risking everything for a chance at something extraordinary? And then she had a revelation, What would happen if she unleashed her greatest weapon, hope? The silence stretched, heavy like the humid summer air. Emma's heart thudded loudly in her chest, each beat echoing the intensity of the moment. She stood alongside Marco, her breath steadying as adrenaline coursed through her veins. The men in front of them shifted, glancing from Marco to Emma, confusion flickering in their eyes. Would they back down? Or were they waiting for the right moment to strike? "Let her go," Marco said, his voice low but commanding. "This is between us." The words hung in the air, a desperate, hopeful plea. Emma felt a rush of gratitude for Marco's bravery, but also fear for what might happen next. She had never imagined her quiet little life at the diner could spiral into something like this, but here she was, standing her ground, her heart and mind racing. The man who had spoken first stepped forward. His eyes bore into Emma with a predatory intensity that made her shiver. "You don't get to make the rules, brother," he snarled, glancing back at his companions as if gauging their response. Emma took a deep breath, holding her ground. "You're right. I don't make the rules. But this isn't your playground. I won't let you destroy it." The tremor in her voice surprised her. She felt more alive than she had in years. With a nod, Marco moved slightly closer to Emma, establishing an unbreakable bond of protection. "You want me? Fight me, not her," he challenged, eyes ablaze with determination. The moment seemed to stretch as the tension crackled in the air. "Is this really worth it?" one of the other men asked, his tone dropping slightly from aggression to curiosity. "You could walk away, Marco. It would be easier." "Easier?" Emma replied, her voice slicing through the chaos. "You think I want easier? I want safety. For myself and for my daughter." With each word, she felt the heat of her resolve solidifying into something fierce and unyielding. The group hesitated, the dynamic shifting as they assessed the unexpected unity displayed before them. Marco looked at Emma, almost surprised by the fire she had ignited in their shared moment. "What is your name?" the first man asked, suddenly intrigued. "Emma," she said defiantly, holding her chin high. She could feel the air vibrating with possibility. "Emma," he echoed, rolling the name around his tongue as though it held some kind of power. In that instant, she understood this wasn't about being fearful. This was about standing tall in the face of adversity. "Listen, I don't care how tough you think you are," Emma said, her voice firm as she directed her fierce gaze toward the men. "You can't bully your way into my life or my diner. If you have a problem, we can settle it without threats." Her heart raced, and for the first time, she found strength she didn't even know existed. Marco took a step closer, his arm subtly brushing against her. It was more than protection, it was partnership. The men exchanged glances, caught off guard by the unexpected confrontation. Emma felt time slow as she sensed a change in the air. Could they really walk away? Moments felt like years as they deliberated. Finally, the first man broke the silence, a slow smirk creeping onto his face, half impressed, half mocking. "This is just a moment. You think you're safe here, but you're in over your head, Emma. Underestimate us, and you will find out just how far we'll go to protect what we love," Marco added. As the tension began to dissolve, Emma felt a flicker of hope ignite, a spark that told her this was not just a fleeting moment, but the first stand of a greater battle. If they could hold their ground here, maybe they could command respect and safety in a world that wanted to strip it away. The men lingered a moment longer, then with a shared nod, they turned and melted back into the night, leaving tension behind but not without planting seeds of uncertainty in Emma's mind. What would they do next? She turned to Marco, breath heavy with adrenaline and the electric thrill of victory. Was she ready for the new challenges ahead? The shadows might still be out there, but a new strength had sparked within her, lighting a path forward. "What comes next?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marco's gaze held hers, filled with a mixture of admiration and uncertainty. "We figure it out together." "But Emma, be careful what you wish for," his warning hung in the air, a ghostly echo as they both realized the depth of what had just begun. Emma's heart raced again, but this time, it was not just from fear. Something extraordinary was happening. Was she prepared to embrace the changes ahead? The first rays of dawn began to creep over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of soft pink and orange. Emma and Marco stood in the aftermath of the confrontation, the energy left hanging in the air like the lingering warmth of a fading summer. Emma could still feel her pulse racing, but now it was mixed with exhilaration and a dawning sense of responsibility. "What if they come back?" Emma whispered, her thoughts racing through the implications of what had just happened. The thought of darkness lurking just beyond the diner's reach wrapped around her like a cold shroud. Marco placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, his grip warm and steady. "We'll be ready. They might think they can scare us, but we won't back down. Not anymore." His resolve seemed to radiate outward, engulfing her in an unspoken promise that she wouldn't have to do this alone. Emma chuckled lightly, a nervous yet hopeful sound. "I never imagined I could stand up to anyone, let alone gangbusters. This diner has always felt so small, you know?" She gestured towards the diner, its once familiar exterior now feeling like a fortress. "Small or not, it's ours to protect," Marco replied, an intensity in his eyes that sent a shiver down her spine. "This place holds a lot of memories, not just for us, but for everyone else who walks through those doors. We're family here." Family. The word bounced around Emma's mind like a buoy in stormy water. She had dedicated her life to her daughter, pouring every hope and dream into their little world, but this was different. This was a community fight, a stand that could ripple across lives beyond her own. Suddenly, the bell above the diner door chimed, breaking them from the moment. A young woman stepped inside, her dark hair tousled from sleep, eyes still heavy with the remnants of dreams. "Emma?" she called tentatively, scanning the room. "Sarah?" Emma recognized her regular, a college student who worked part-time just to make ends meet. "Is everything okay?" She hesitated, stepping closer. "I heard about last night. Are you both all right?" Emma exchanged glances with Marco, a mix of apprehension and gratitude pooling in her chest. It wasn't just about them anymore. People were watching, worried, and maybe even inspired. "Yeah," Marco assured, though Emma could sense the hesitation behind his bravado. "We're okay. But we may need your help." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, concern etching her features. "We need to keep this diner safe, and that means we need a plan. You all deserve to feel secure when you walk in here," Emma explained, her determination surfacing again. "Count me in." Sarah's eyes brightened with purpose. "Everyone's been talking about what happened. People are rallying. They want to support you, Emma." The door swung open again, and more familiar faces flooded in. John, the mechanic, Lucy, the elderly lady who sat in the corner booth every day. Word had spread, feeding a powerful current. Renewed strength coursed through Emma's veins as the patrons formed a circle around her, ready to stand firm. "I know I may be just a waitress," she started, her voice steadier now. "But I believe we can protect our little world right here. Together." As they rallied around her, the air filled with murmurs of agreement. Emma felt her purpose crystallize, and in that moment, a fierce warmth blossomed within, chasing away the fear. Yet even in the union of their resolve, a shadow of doubt loomed. Would this newfound courage be enough to keep the threats at bay? She could almost hear the echo of the first man's mocking words. Outside, the world was waking up, and Emma felt the scrutiny of every person around her. How far would they go to defend their sanctuary? And more importantly, what would happen when the next confrontation arrived? Her breath quickened. We have to prepare for anything, she whispered. Marco stepped closer, his presence a steady anchor. And we will. We're stronger than we think, Emma. Just trust yourself. As they exchanged a determined glance, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. What would the real cost of their stand be? Was she truly ready for the fight ahead? The morning sun climbed higher, its warmth slowly dispelling the haze of uncertainty. Emma felt her heart pound steadily beneath her ribs, each beat echoing with the weight of expectation. As the diner's familiar sounds enveloped her, the sizzling of the grill, the coffee pot bubbling, she drew strength from the community gathered around her. What is the plan, Emma? Lucy's voice pierced the air, her gentle tone carrying an urgency that jolted Emma into action. Right, Emma said, standing taller. We need to secure this place. Install cameras, maybe set up a watch schedule. John, his hands calloused from years of hard work, stepped forward. I can handle the hardware. I've got some old equipment in the garage. It'll be worth it. Hope surged through Emma. Each suggestion countered her doubts just a little more, every face encircling her a testament to the unity they shared. And I can talk to the others, Sarah added, a determined glint in her eye. If people are rallying behind this, we can get funds for better security. Exactly. We need to inform everyone. No one should feel afraid to walk in here. Emma's voice began to fill with confidence. The diner wasn't just a place for coffee. It was a haven where struggles and dreams coalesced. As discussions unfolded, Marco's presence remained a steady force beside her. He leaned closer, his warm breath brushing against her ear. Emma, you're doing great. Just keep steering them. You have the heart for this. His words resonated deep in her chest. Emma realized it was her heart they were all drawn to protect what they loved and what grounded them. But with that realization came a sharp reminder of the previous night's confrontation. The thrill of standing up to danger still pulsated in her veins, but she wondered how long it would last. In the midst of their brainstorming, a sudden noise outside pulled their attention. A group of voices rose, loud and angry, mixing with the cheerful clinking of plates and chatter inside the diner. Emma's stomach twisted. Her instinct kicked in. Stay here, she instructed, but Marco shook his head. No way, he said firmly. If it's trouble, we face it together. With a collective breath, they all moved toward the glass door, peering out at the scene unfolding. Two men in dark jackets argued with a group of teenagers loitering near the diner, the tension crackling like static in the air. Emma's heart dropped as she recognized one of the men from the prior encounter, his brash persona unmistakable. What do you want? Emma shouted, her voice trembling but strong. The words felt like a shield, her way of defending her people. The man turned slowly, a menacing grin spreading across his face. I just came to see how it feels to stand up to the big boys. Heard you're playing hero now. Marco stepped forward as if to protect Emma from the weight of his words, but she held him back. The raw anger that had crept in from fear suddenly morphed into defiance. You think you can scare us? This is our home. Laughter erupted from the man, an unsettling sound that made Emma's skin crawl. Your home? Not for long. You think this little army of yours can keep me out? He gestured loosely to the others behind him. As the tension escalated, her community's solidarity hung in the air. Just as it felt like chaos might win, a familiar figure emerged from the throng on the street. A tall man with an aura of authority stepped forward. The unkempt stubble and sharp gaze struck an unexpected chord in Emma's memory. Back off, he said, his voice steady and commanding. I have no patience for bullies. Heat flooded Emma's cheeks as she processed the realization. The Mafia boss she'd once heard whispered about, the one who ruled the underground, now stood toe-to-toe with the man they feared. Would he help protect their sanctuary, or bring more trouble into their midst? As uneasy silence enveloped them, Emma's heart raced. Who was this man, and what would he choose in the delicate balance between darkness and light? The shadows of uncertainty loomed larger than ever, and Emma felt the weight of destiny shift beneath her feet. What choices lay ahead, and who could she truly trust? Nobody moved. The world outside the diner held its breath, all eyes locked on the standoff. Emma felt the heaviness of the moment press down on her chest. The tension was palpable, and everyone inside felt it, the gravity of whether they would be protected or plunged into chaos again. The man, the Mafia boss, stood his ground, unwavering. There was something about his confidence that drew Emma's gaze. He exuded a calm that screamed control, and she felt a flicker of hope amidst the storm swirling in her mind. "Who do you think you are?" The other man spat, his bravado faltering slightly. He looked to his companions for reinforcement, but it didn't come. Instead, they shrunk back, suddenly unsure of the fight. "I'm someone who knows what it means to defend what is important," the Mafia boss replied, his icy gaze unfaltering. "And you should learn that lesson quickly before you regret crossing the wrong line." As he spoke, Emma found herself inching closer to this unexpected ally, instinctively seeking strength. Marco's presence remained firm beside her. She felt his body tense, ready for confrontation. But Emma shook her head. This wasn't the time for anger. It was a moment for strategy. The man from earlier scoffed, regaining some of his bravado. "You think you can just walk in here and change the game? This diner isn't worth your time." But there was uncertainty in his voice now, a crack in his armor, as the rest of his crew shuffled nervously behind him. "Worth my time?" The Mafia boss stepped closer, narrowing the distance between himself and the group. He leveled a steady gaze at them, a hint of violence simmering beneath his calm demeanor. "It's worth the fight when a community stands tall." "I respect that. And I'll make sure you know that if you lay another hand on anyone here, you'll regret it." Emma couldn't quite process what was happening. The air seemed to crackle with the possibility of danger, but also something else. Emergency turned to alliance. Hope against fear. Suddenly, there was a shout from the back. "Stop this. We don't need violence here." It was Sarah, stepping forward. Her voice trembled, but her resolve was strong. "We have a right to exist peacefully. Just leave us alone." Emma's heart soared at Sarah's bravery. Maybe they could handle this without escalating a fight. The Mafia boss turned his attention to Sarah, and for the first time, a flicker of something almost soft crossed his face. It took Emma by surprise. He appeared human, not just a shadow lurking in the darkness. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said, his voice lower, almost gentle. "But I will not let bullies take what isn't theirs." His gaze darted back to the opposition, the confidence unwavering once again. As the two men's eyes clashed, Emma sensed an unspoken challenge in the air. The uncertainty was almost tangible. Would this man fight for them? She dared to hope. In that moment, the distant sound of sirens echoed down the street, a reminder that help could be on the way. But would they arrive in time? Emma straightened her spine, drawing courage from the gathered crowd behind her. "We can't live in fear," she said, her voice steady, emboldened. "You want to threaten us? You'll have to face every single one of us." The Mafia boss chuckled, clearly amused. "I like the fire," he replied, looking back at Emma. "All right then, let us see how this plays out." But first, he pointed a finger towards the men threatening their sanctuary. "You have one last chance to walk away." As tension hung thick in the air, the group of men hesitated, caught in the web of bravado and uncertainty. Emma's breaths quickened. Would they choose to retreat, or would they draw the line here, pushing the confrontation towards violence? Emma's heart thudded, caught in the throes of hope and fear. It felt like everything was teetering on the edge of chaos. Would they truly walk away? Or was this just the calm before the storm? Right there on the precipice of change, Emma could only wait and wonder what would happen next. The silence was deafening. It enveloped the diner like a thick fog, filling every crevice with anxiety. Emma could barely hear the distant sirens now. Her focus was solely on the group of men before her. They shifted uneasily, visibly torn between the challenge laid out before them and the simmering fear that was crawling under their skin. One of the men, the largest, with a tattoo snaking up his neck, took a step forward. "You think we're just gonna back down?" "We came here for a reason," he said, his voice a low growl that rang with defiance. The Mafia boss straightened, eyes locked on the man with a fierce intensity. "Your reason doesn't matter here," he replied, tapping a finger against his temple. "What matters is how you'll handle your defeat, whether it's today or later." Emma held her breath. This was at the moment they either stood their ground or crumbled into fear. She could sense Marco tense beside her, prepared to spring into action, but she placed a hand on his arm to calm him. "We can't let them see us divided," she whispered, her heart hammering, urging him to trust. "Maybe you think you're tough," the tattooed man sneered, "but this town? It belongs to us." With surprising swiftness, the Mafia boss tossed his head back and laughed, a deep rumble that echoed through the diner. "Belongs to you?" he said, shaking his head, as if he couldn't believe the audacity. "Towns like this belong to those who fight for them, not to bullies who stomp around like they own the place." Emma's pulse quickened at his words. Was this man, who stood at the edge of chaos, really willing to protect them? There was something powerful in his conviction, more so than any physical threat posed by the men across from them. "Enough!" shouted the man who had first challenged their new ally. "We don't want any trouble, but you don't know what you're getting into." With a glance at his crew, Emma watched as uncertainty spread across their faces. They were losing their footing, the adrenaline fading in the face of unwavering resolve. "What is it going to be?" The Mafia boss's voice was steady, and now there was an edge of steel in his tone. He took a step closer, invading their space, daring them further. "Choose wisely, because I want to let you walk away without consequences if you choose wrong." The sirens grew louder, practically singing of hope and help. Emma felt a flicker of courage ignite in her gut. "You're right. We're not backing down," she shouted, feeling a swell of power among the gathered crowd. "Those who stand together can't be broken." The tension shifted. A wave of resolve brightened the air in the diner. Even the Mafia boss raised an eyebrow, impressed by Emma's bravery. Her heart swelled as she felt the small community rallying behind her, shoulders squared and ready for whatever would come next. But then the tattooed man growled, "You'd really face us together? You have no idea who you're messing with," and before the words could settle, he charged forward, ready to ignite the spark that would either lead to chaos or courage. In that split second, Emma thought of everything she stood to lose: her job, her community, her life as she knew it. But more than that, she thought of the people around her. Their faces were bright with determination, a stark contrast to the fear that had once suffocated their sanctuary. Instinct kicked in. "Get behind us!" she cried, positioning herself in front of Marco, her newly found ally, and the others. One bold moment, one choice, could define their fate. Would they find strength in unity, or would darkness swallow them whole? And in the frenetic space between anticipation and dread, Emma could only grip hope tightly as the storm broke loose. The moment exploded like a firecracker. The tattooed man lunged, his anger a tangible force in the air. Emma's heart raced as chaos erupted. Marco stepped forward, fists clenched, ready to defend, but Emma's voice pierced through the noise. "No! Wait!" It was too late. The attack was swift. The Mafia boss sidestepped the charge with a shocking agility. The diner, once a place of warmth and camaraderie, transformed into a battlefield. Metal clanked as chairs were knocked aside, and glass shattered underfoot. "Stay together!" the Mafia boss shouted, his voice cutting through the cacophony. He launched himself at the tattooed man with a furious intensity, but Emma saw the fear in the eyes of the other men. They hadn't counted on a fight. They were bluster and bravado, but faced with real opposition, uncertainty flickered through their ranks. In that split second, something shifted deep within Emma. She motioned for the others to back her up. We need to show them we won. Back down. The collective pulse of determination in the diner surged, and for the first time, it felt like they were a wall, a united front against the oncoming tide of brutality. The tattooed man reeled backward from the Mafia boss's unexpected counter. "What's wrong with you guys?" he spat, glancing at his crew. His anger was palpable, but beside it, doubt began to creep in. Emma seized the moment. "This isn't your town anymore," she yelled, raising her voice above the din. "We refuse to live in fear." The words resonated, emboldening not just her, but the others. A few patrons, who had been lurking in the corners, now stood up, inspired to join the fight. An elderly woman with a rolling pin, a high school kid with a baseball bat, every voice and every action mattered. The Mafia boss, a brawler who had seen too much, smiled briefly at Emma's courage. Then, with a roar, he dove back into the fray. The energy in the room shifted. The air crackled as people rallied, opponents becoming allies in their shared purpose. Emma felt adrenaline shoot through her veins as she sidestepped the few men who had decided to charge at her. She swept her arm towards them, the rolling pin whirling a makeshift weapon fueled by defiance and hope. "Get out!" she yelled. "This is our diner." The sirens continued to wail outside, drowning the roar of the fight. Each ripple of sound reminded her that help was on the way. Then, as the tattooed man regained his footing, he looked puzzled. The fierceness of Emma and the Mafia boss had rattled his confidence. He glanced back one more time at his crew, and they were hesitating. Fear eroded their bravado like waves upon rocks. The moment hummed like a pendulum ready to swing. "You don't want this," Tattooed Man finally shouted, backing away. "We'll settle this another time." As he turned, Emma felt a rush of triumph blend with relief. They would not give in. They had fought back. The remaining men scrambled out of the diner, retreating with what little dignity they had left. The Mafia boss stood among them, chest heaving, surveying the scene, now alive with a palpable energy of victory. Emma turned to Marco, who looked at her wide-eyed, disbelief written across his face. "Did we really just do that?" he gasped, his voice trembling. "Yes," she breathed, still trying to catch her breath. "Together, we did." But just as they began to feel the weight of victory wash over them, a low rumble echoed from outside. Emma and the others froze. The sound did not belong to the sirens. It was coming from a large black van, pulling up right outside the diner. Fear thrummed back to life as Emma caught sight of more figures emerging from the shadows inside the vehicle. Was this a reinforcements round? Had they only begun to scratch the surface of a much larger fight? A chill crawled up her spine, and she thought, what now? And as the diner filled with new shapes and dark intentions, the fight for their home was far from over. Emma's heart pounded like a drum in her chest as the van's doors swung open. The shadows spilled out, revealing figures clad in dark clothes, faces obscured by baseball caps and hooded sweatshirts. It felt as if time had hit pause, the world outside the diner fading into a blur of color and sound. Everyone, back inside. The Mafia boss hollered, his voice booming with authority. Emma stumbled to follow the crowd, confusion swirling in her mind. Who were these new threats? Why had the tattooed man's crew arrived with reinforcements instead of running away? Marco stood beside her, eyes wide with fear. "What do we do now?" he whispered, nearly drowned out by the shouts and the uproar. "We stand together," Emma declared, trying her best to mask the tremble in her voice. The adrenaline rush that had fueled their earlier triumph was beginning to fade, replaced by a heavy, suffocating dread. Just then, one of the newcomers stepped forward, peeling back the brim of his cap. Emma squinted, her breath hitching in her throat. He had the same unmistakable build as the Mafia boss. "Boss?" came a voice laden with recognition. The tension stretched taut like a drawn bowstring. The Mafia boss shifted, meeting the newcomer's gaze, an unreadable expression crossing his face. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. Could this be a trap? "Get back to the van," the Mafia boss ordered, his tone sharp, carrying a weight that made the newcomer freeze for a moment before complying, the others trailing behind him. In the sudden silence, Emma dared to draw closer. "Who are they?" she asked, feeling the gravity of the moment weigh on her shoulders. The Mafia boss's eyes darkened. "Friends, or at least, they used to be," he replied cryptically. Emma exchanged a glance with Marco. What does that mean? The questions piled up in her mind, but before she could voice another concern, she heard raised voices outside the diner, blending with the sounds of distant sirens still echoing in the thick air. "They won't be able to help you," a cold voice spat, coming from the shadows beyond the glass doors. Emma turned just in time to see the tattooed man re-enter, flanked by his remaining crew. "You've already shown you're weak, and now this," he gestured to the outsider's van, "this just confirms it." Behind him, more men emerged, their intentions scriptured in the set of their jaws, and the glint in their eyes. Panic surged through her veins. They had barely fended off one attack. How could they face a second? But just as despair crept in, Emma noticed something shift in the Mafia boss. He stood taller, an unmistakable fire igniting in his gaze. "You think you can take what's ours? This isn't just a diner. It's a community, and we defend what's ours." The room erupted into a chaotic chorus of voices as the patrons rallied, encouraged by his strength. Emma felt warmth surge in her chest. They had found their spirit again, but the tension remained tight. "Together, we stand," Marco shouted, fists raised high, driving the fire back into the hearts of the others as they formed a line of resistance. The tattooed man's expression twisted into a sneer. "You think this is the end? You're just a bunch of scared rabbits." At that moment, Emma understood. Fear had its claws in her, but it no longer consumed her. Rallying her courage, she stepped close, heart racing but resolute. "Then let us show them what a united front looks like." The chatter of defiance rose, merging with a sense of purpose that filled the air like electricity. Emma held her breath, waiting for the inevitable clash. But as the two forces prepared to collide, everything hung in a delicate balance. Would a breakthrough come from their unity, or would they be swept back into the chaos that ruled their lives? As the first shout bounced off the walls, it was clear a storm was brewing, and only one side could emerge as victors. The clash came with a force like thunder, reverberating deep in Emma's chest. Chairs toppled, and the air thickened with the urgency of battling hearts. Emma felt a mix of terror and exhilaration as the diner's steadfast community prepared to defend their home. A fire had ignited and everyone gathered, and that energy crackled with raw emotion. "Move!" Marco shouted, pushing forward, a wall of determination beside Emma. She felt a surge of pride. They were a team bound to protect their sanctuary, and for the first time, the fear that had once held her back transformed into pure, unwavering strength. Behind her, familiar faces gripped makeshift weapons, John swinging his wrench, Sarah brandishing the rolling pin, and even the elderly Lucy's frail but fierce voice shouted encouragement. They were ready to stand firm against adversity, truly united for the first time. The tattooed man realized he underestimated them. "You think you can scare us with these pathetic props?" he barked, a taunting grin plastered across his face. But Emma saw the glint of uncertainty in his eyes. He was a bully, and bullies always falter when they meet real courage. Pathetic? No, Emma called back, her voice ringing with newfound authority. This is our home, our family, and we'll do whatever it takes to protect it. The Mafia boss, standing beside her, surged forward with a primal roar. You don't get a say here anymore. You leave, or you face us all. His words held a fierce power that filled Emma with fervor. The tattooed man faltered for a second, glancing back at his crew, a moment of uncertainty in their ranks. Emma seized the chance. They've tried to intimidate us for too long. They don't own this diner or this town. Her eruptions ignited the crowd, and they echoed her sentiment, voices building until they reached a crescendo. We stand together. At that moment, an incredible wave of unity surged through them. In one powerful surge, they charged ahead, cutting through the tension, bodies colliding against the encroaching opposition. The clang of metal met with shouts, as Emma felt the warmth of her community rallying. They were doing this together. The tattooed man, faced with the unexpected intensity, clutched his jaw. You're making a big mistake. And with that, they lunged forward, chaos erupting anew in the diner. The adrenaline propelled Emma forward, and she found herself at the forefront, dodging and weaving, her heart pounding. It wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that they had strength in numbers. Marco stayed close, helping to clear a path and protect each other from the fray. Just then, the door swung open again, and the Mafia boss's colleagues joined the fray, their presence shifting the dynamic. Stand back, we're here to support. One called, charging toward the tattooed man and his crew. The tide began to turn. They were no longer outnumbered but empowered. Fists flew, and the sound of defiance echoed through the space. As Emma wrestled with one of the men, she realized the diner carried its very essence in every cry for unity. It was more than just a building. It was the vibrant heart of their community. With every blow exchanged, Emma felt her fear dissolve into adrenaline and strength. She fought not just for survival, but for the spirit of the people around her, their stories, their dreams, and their laughter. As the skirmish heightened, the chaotic sounds of the struggle reverberated, but then, fading in the distance, came the sirens, the promise of authority closing in. Relief poured through her like rain after a drought. Emma started to believe they could actually win this fight. Pushing through the haze, she glanced at the Mafia boss and caught his eye. In that charged moment, an understanding passed between them, a shared purpose igniting their spirits. They would stand together until the very end. Let us finish this, he shouted, and they surged forward in synchronized defiance. The remaining opposition began to falter, their facade cracking in the face of strength born from community. With one last push, they cornered the tattooed crew, who finally seemed to retreat, uncertainty now replaced with fear. They climbed over the few scattered chairs and dashed for the door, not willing to meet the consequences anymore. As the silence boomed in the aftermath, its reality washed over them. Emma looked around, savoring the feeling of victory, relief, and overwhelming pride. The diner stood intact, but more importantly, so did their spirits. They had shielded each other, forging bonds that would outlast any threat. We've done it. Marco breathed, laughter spilling from him, the overwhelming tension lifting like fog in the morning sun. We did this together, Emma replied, a radiant smile illuminating her face as she took in her community's laughter, confidence growing stronger than ever. But even as joy surged, she knew darkness would never be far behind. The world outside would come knocking again. This was just the beginning of a fight worth having. But for now, she turned to embrace those around her. Their hands were raised high, and they were alive, transforming their diner into a fortress of hope. We keep fighting, we keep protecting, and we do it as a family, Emma declared, knowing deep down they were all truly connected now. And as the sirens drew closer, They looked out of the diner's grimy windows into the beautiful light beyond, determined, together, and ready for whatever came next. Now, if you've felt the struggle and the triumph alongside Emma and her community, you need to subscribe now to catch all the exclusive stories that will inspire you. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Comment your reactions and feelings about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait not even one more second. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us create a movement of hope together.